Welcome, Better Trail team. Katie, Jenny, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to the
It's awesome.
podcast.
Thanks for
Awesome
having
to be
us.
here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I was saying before we started recording how I want to know everything about Better Trails. This is like a selfish endeavor of like just getting to ask you both so many questions about the founding, the creation of this awesome thing that you've both built, that you've all built with your team in the last few months. But before we dive into that, I think I'm just going to have you both do introductions. And I think let's do, because there's two of you, let's do an introduction and then go into a question that I ask every guest, which is, what was your aha moment on climate? And you can take that in whatever way you want. So just an introduction of who you are and what you want to say about that. And then what was your aha moment on climate? Let's go with Katie first.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Katie Oram, and I'm the sustainability lead at Better Trail. So I head up all of our sustainability content and research with a small team. And I'm originally from New Hampshire, but I live in Lander, Wyoming now. And I studied conservation biology in school, and I have spent some time teaching environmental science and working in outdoor education, like expedition-based wilderness trips, and then also worked as a rock climbing guide and avalanche educator. So that's like a little bit about me, my background. And let's see, I really liked this question. Took me a moment to think about it. And I think ultimately, like, I can't remember having a specific aha moment on climate, but I've always been really interested in it, like studying it at school. But I think the biggest realization for me has just come with seeing the changes of climate change on outdoor spaces in real time, especially working in outdoor education and guiding and going on these long expeditions and going back to similar places and just seeing those changes over like 10 or 15 years, whether it be glaciers receding or disappearing altogether, or worse avalanche problems developing because of longer dry spells and warmer weather, evidence of larger wildfires, like things like that. So for me, I think it's really been just kind of being out there in the field, seeing some of these environmental changes in real time, that has also sort of inspired me, like, to do more with climate in my work, in my personal life.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate that answer. The over time, sort of the gradual seeing changes around. I had someone ask me when I mentioned this question offline, off recording. I asked this question every guest, and they said, "Oh, do people usually take that as kind of like doomsday alarmist, like aha, like, oh shit, we have to do something, or is it more like, like, here's a solution that is really important to me?" And it was sort of interesting because it's a little bit of both, like, and even in your answer, hearing like there's changes you notice and then driving you to take more action and even infuse climate into your work and your life, which is so interesting. So thank you for that. And Jenny, I'd also love to hear your introduction and aha moment on climate, whatever that means to you.
My name's Jenny Abegg. I live in Leavenworth, Washington, and I'm from British Columbia. Have lived my whole life in the Pacific Northwest area. And I'm one of the founders of Better Trail. I've worked with the founding team for maybe we can get into this later, but we've all worked together for like 8 years now, and started Better Trail about a year and a month ago. And we can talk more about the origin story of that. But in addition to being one of the founders of Better Trail, I also just love getting outside. And mostly I'm like a climber and a bit of a trail runner, mountain runner. And yeah, I think my aha moment is quite similar to Katie's. Like, I travel on glaciers a lot and have spent so much time in the mountains in the Pacific Northwest, and grew up without smoke in the summer, and August was like the time to go mountaineering. And now it's like, if you go in August, you're too late because the glaciers are dry ice and there's smoke in the sky. And so it just has become increasingly apparent to me that our world is changing. and it's different from when I was a kid, which wasn't that long ago. I also, like, on the bright side of my aha moment, this is like maybe 9 years ago, I went on an expedition into a remote range in BC to climb some peaks, and nobody had been back there. Like, it felt very untouched. And I just got this, I felt like a visitor, and I felt like every footstep was like kind of uninvited and like impactful. And then I had this calming realization that, like, the earth heals itself. Like, in a year, my trammeling of this landscape, like, it won't be noticed. And so I think in the background of like climate anxiety and climate grief, I think I hold this just realization that, like, the earth is fine. I think it's like, is the earth going to be inhabitable for humans? That's scary. And that's like something that we can, that we get really anxious about and that we grieve. But I love holding on to this idea that the earth is really powerful. It's more powerful than us. It's responding to us, but like it restores itself at the same time. And every spring I feel this too, when I'm like, oh, blossoms, like, I guess it's happening
Totally.
again. Like, the earth is still like doing its thing, as much as we might have this like powerful impact on it. So that kind of gives me peace in all of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you for that too. I think I think about that a lot, and I've seen a lot of people write about that. I know you're a writer and, have that background in communicating and writing about, natural landscapes and outdoor pursuits. And I think that is something I see where folks are like, oh, the earth's good. It's just like, we've kind of messed it up. And then also, are we going to be able to live on it? Like, to put it in really blunt terms. And I think that is something I think about all the time, where, that next to, then of course, there's of course the sentiment of like, no, it's not, like, we've done a lot of damage, and like there's that kind of lane too. So I feel like this podcast, these conversations have become almost like like bioethics, or like, they sort of these like environmental ethics conversations around, like, holding all of this at once, I think is important to talk through, right? It's like you mentioned climate anxiety, and I think this is, one way that, like, I've dove into mine head first, like having these conversations with people where this kind of thing comes up. But yeah, there's the one of like, yes, we've done a lot of damage, and of course that's like something we need to address and change behaviors around. But there's also the earth heals itself. I love that, because it does. Yeah, exactly. And Katie, you had some background. Did you remind me, because I did some of this research too, but you were a founding organizer, leader of a group around climate action. Was that in Wyoming?
Yeah. So that was in Lander. And basically it was just a small group of just Lander citizens. It was kind of like before COVID, around COVID, and just kind of getting together to be like, what can we do about climate change within our sphere of influence here in our small town? And it really just started as conversations and brainstorming, and now it's really blossomed its own nonprofit. And
Cool.
it's called Lander Climate Action Network, and it's created an energy and environment task force with the city government. And so they're working on things like doing an emissions inventory and figuring out like different efficiency projects. And the group hosted a climate conference for the state of Wyoming. So yeah, it's done a bunch of cool stuff, and it really just started as a group of concerned citizens trying to do something.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I'm sure that fed into now your role at Better Trail. So let's hop into that. I'm so excited to dive in. So Jenny, you already mentioned one of the questions I had for you all was about the origin story. And you mentioned it was actually about a year or more ago when Better Trail founded. So I think like to start with Jenny, and then obviously open it up to both of you, but what is the founding story? What is the origin story of Better Trail? And Jenny, as one of the founding members, how did this come to be? You mentioned you've been working with the other founders for a little while. So take us back, give us some of the history of Better Trail and the founding.
Yeah, so the founding team is myself and then a guy named David Wilkinson who lives in Boulder, and then John Ellings who lives in Wenatchee, just down the road from me. And David and John and I have all worked together since 2016. We were like the core team at a website called Switchback Travel, which David founded in the early 2010s. Which despite the name Switchback Travel, it ended up being an outdoor gear review site. David sold Switchback Travel in 2020 and stepped back a little bit. John and I stayed. And once David's like non-compete, non-solicit was up 3 years later, he approached John and I and kind of pitched this idea of round two, like version 2.0, but let's make an impact. Let's have a positive impact on the space. We know how to make a website like this work, but can we make it additive? And we're aware that sustainability was becoming this focal point in outdoor gear, and something that it needed to become a focal point. And yet there was no great resource for folks, like if they wanted to shop with an eye for sustainability, or just know more about what it means for something to be PFAS free, or what is a Higg index, or like what are these efforts that outdoor brands are making, and do they matter? And what brands are leading the way and which ones aren't. And so Better Trail was founded on this idea that we know, like, we have a great track record of providing the space with like really nice information on outdoor gear, but can we supplement it with this new batch of information? And we started it in March of 2024, so we're like a year and a month in, and it's been so cool to see how it's evolved, even from our like initial like conception of it in the beginning. And it still is like, we wanted to touch on outdoor gear, and then we wanted there to be a huge sustainability focus, and we also wanted to educate people on public lands, because if you're shopping for outdoor gear, you're recreating on public lands. And so that's been really cool to see that content build out. But as we've evolved, we've realized that there is this just massive hole in information on sustainability. And there are some industries that are doing it right. Like there's like the Monterey Bay Aquarium, like analyzes seafood, and it's like how well is it sourced? And then there's like Environmental Working Group is doing the same thing with like healthcare products and skincare products. And we wanted to kind of provide the outdoor gear users with a similar like database for shopping responsibly. So that's where Katie came in. And we were so stoked to find Katie, and we basically like passed off this section of the website to her, because none of us, John, David, and I, we come as experts in the outdoor gear space, but none of us have backgrounds in sustainability or environmental sciences. So we knew we needed to find somebody that could kind of lead that charge.
Totally. And Katie, how did you hear about it directly from the team? Like, did they approach you? Were you reaching out to them? Like, how did it come about that you joined?
Yeah. I had been talking to Jenny a little bit. I was looking, Jenny and I have a mutual friend, and I was looking to sort of transition jobs. And so Jenny and I had connected about Better Trail and potentially doing some gear testing. And then I was looking on the Basecamp outdoor jobs listserv, and I noticed that Better Trail had posted a sustainability writer, was the job at the time. And so I asked Jenny about it, and I was like, what's this? Like, this sounds like it could be right up my alley. Here's my background, blah, blah, blah. And Jenny said, you should definitely apply. And so I did.
And now you're not just a writer. Now you lead so much at the company. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say, like, one of the questions, as you know, was I'm baffled by how much awesome content you guys have, and how fast you generate it. And like it seems like you have not only this core team of y'all, but also a pretty large group of folks like writing for you. How does kind of the content generation piece work, given that you're also, and we'll get into the public lands piece because I'm super excited to dive in there too, but given that you're talking about public lands and sustainability and gear, like there's so many pillars to what you do.
Yeah, we had to really play catch up starting from scratch. And so we like very quickly built out a pretty huge team of gear testers, and brought on writers that with experience in the field. We kind of just went for it. And that was all David just being like, if we're going to do this, we might as well do this. And so I think it like within like 6 months, we had like probably 40 people like contributing in different ways. And Katie ran a team. Katie, I guess you can speak to your team that you ran and are running.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so we brought on a few more people after, like, I was doing some research, kind of building out what is the sustainability side of the site, and then we brought on a few more people to build out, because we're doing like the product and brand research, but we're also writing long form articles about different sustainability topics in the outdoor gear space. So we brought on a bunch of folks to build out that content and doing more research on product and brands. And now we have a small team that's been here for a little bit, and we all have backgrounds in environmental science. So we're all sort of experts in that realm. And yeah, over time, we've just kind of been learning a lot and dialing in our systems for the different criteria that we're researching and that we're looking for, and how to evaluate products and brands. And we do a lot of collaborating and discussion as a group to make sure we all feel like good about the content that we're putting out there into the world and the research. And so, yeah, it's like a really collaborative effort, but also based on like research and creating our own guidelines and criteria that we're working off of.
Yeah, that's seems like a lot of it, of creating, as you said, Jenny, like from things from scratch. You have now this amazing built out library of not only content, but Katie, to your point, like sort of a process you follow, or like standards and regulations that you're making for Better Trail that you're then communicating to the world. And this is something that I didn't necessarily like send over to you guys ahead of time, but I was curious if we could, because a lot of people listen to this, I think, like driving or running or, sort of like on the move. So people might not be like right in front of their computer to go, search the website. So I was curious if like we could talk through someone like kind of a consumer journey, if you will. Like what is someone coming to the website? Maybe they're excited about learning about new gear. Like I have played around on it a bunch, but I was curious if like for folks that aren't right on it right now to see Better Trail, like what is it in a way of like, what can you expect? Like, you land on the homepage and there's so much amazing content. Are there people that are like, I want to buy something? Like, how do you kind of serve them? Are you like, yeah, tell me more about like, what is the user journey, if you will, of Better Trail?
Yeah, I think that I imagine that most of our readers come just wanting to research gear so that they can make a final decision and then go buy it from a place like REI.
Yeah.
And they might land on our site by going to bettertrail.com, but the majority of people are coming because they searched like the Salomon X Ultra 5 shoe review, and they're ending up, or like, what are the best ski jackets? And then they find Better Trail.
Okay.
And so they'll land on an article, and as you scroll down the article, there's like a ton of information. I mean, it is a traditional gear review for sure. And we have, like the 40 people that I cited are all like out using these products. But as you scroll down there, you'll notice in a standard gear review, there is a sustainability box. And in the sustainability box are a number of criteria that are both product based and brand based, anywhere from like, I don't know, 6 to 10 criteria, where we break down. And Katie, I should let you talk about this. Why don't you talk about this? This is Katie's creation.
Yeah.
Like,
cool.
And it is not without like, I mean, there have been so many iterations of it, which I find really cool, in that we are spending a lot of time dialing in what is the information that we want to present, what is the information that matters, what matters more than other things. And so, yeah,
these
Katie,
are like the bars. Are these the bars kind of on the right hand side where there's like a level like measuring sustainability, etc.?
There's every product gets an overall sustainability rating
Yeah,
out of 5.
cool.
And there's a lot of like numbers and science and crazy Excel stuff that goes into that. And then in that are these, like, we factor in a number of criteria for each product. And Katie, do you want to talk about that? Like that,
Yeah,
just
so
so you know.
when a reader's on the gear review, they can click on the sustainability tab, and like under that there's a bunch of different icons, and if they click on that, it will say like recycled materials or PFAS free or fair trade certified, things like that. And every product category is different, and I can go into like how we do the research a little bit later, but basically we figure out like what's going on in this product category. So like down jackets, what's happening in that product category at the brand and product level. So there's some overlap with the brand level in different categories, but and so then a reader can like click through, and there's a description of how we define recycled materials, and then there's a like a 2-paragraph write-up of that product that's sort of like a highlight reel of the sustainability features. So it will say like how much recycled materials, are there any like certifications associated with the product, such as Blue Sign. We talk about PFAS. We have other like ethically sourced categories like wool and down, and then brand level information as well, like greenhouse gas tracking and packaging and repair services. So every product will have those little icons that you can click on, and then you can read about the whole product.
That's so cool. So comprehensive. Yeah. Also, because these are like massive topics like PFAS and, you know, like the wool sourcing and supply chain and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
hats off to you guys.
So that's what you see if you come to, like, if you approach the site from I'm researching outdoor gear in order to purchase it kind of lens. I want a gear review, and here's some sustainability information if I want to read it to go along with it. Yeah. We are launching this new product very soon that we're calling the Sustainability Hub. And the general thesis of the hub is that you come to the hub if you care about sustainability, and you can search entire product categories. You can see lists of like, here's ski jackets ranked in terms of how well they do in our sustainability criteria. Or I want to search for ski jackets that only have a PFAS-free membrane, output me those products. And then every single product within the sustainability hub gets a full breakdown. And then you can click through if you want to learn more about like what actually like does an annual impact report tell us, or like, does it matter if a product had like, what is reduced and recycled packaging or repair services? Like, tell me more. And then we have full breakdown articles on all of those things. So I think in essence, we're just trying to like create like more educated consumers, and like our readership can do with the information what they want. Like we're not trying to shove anything down people's throats. We're trying to present the facts in an easy to digest manner, and then people can kind of decide what's important to them.
Yeah.
In terms of their impact and their consumption habits. And
yeah, I mean, the education piece is huge of what y'all are doing. I think, unsurprisingly, I mean, I of course, I'm an outdoor recreator and have outdoor gear, but I came to y'all's site from the angle of like environmental education. I was like, PFAS, like they're talking about PFAS. This is so cool. Like, whoa, someone's talking about this in, you know, outdoor gear. Cause I, to your point, like I felt like that wasn't something that was in the dialogue like there. And that's exactly why I wanted to get in touch with you both, is because I was so excited to see that in this landscape of outdoor recreators, you know, the thesis of this project is really about like, there are so many people working on climate across the board. Mm-hmm. And I had this hunch that like a lot of them are either like weekend warrior, like there's like the desk, you know, the sort of like climate folks who work at, you know, desk jobs in various industries, energy, advocacy, policy. And, you know, I happen to know a few of them, and I'm like, oh, they're all surfers, climbers, skiers, runners. Yeah. Like they all love to go do that stuff. And so it's also like, there's a connection there, right? Between wanting to protect these natural spaces, wanting to work on climate and environment, and also really loving to recreate in it. And so, but I thought it was really interesting that, again, coming to Better Trail being like, wow, these are conversations that around gear that like I hadn't really seen happening. Sure, there's brand level. I feel like a little bit on the brand level, I've seen some brands start to talk about it. But what was really cool was to see Better Trail doing it across brands and across products. And I think to that point, I was going to ask, do you work? Because I saw there were a few like brand specific write-ups of like what the brand is doing. And you mentioned this, Katie, like the greenhouse gas inventory, et cetera. Do you work with brands on that when you craft those? Or is this kind of like how do you build those out? Like the brand specific education?
That's a really good question. So for the brand level, and that's also one thing that the Sustainability Hub will have additionally to the products, it will have brand level write-ups or reports. And those go more in depth than what we talk about at the brand level in the product write-ups. But yeah, the research is pretty thorough and in-depth. So we usually start for the brand level. We usually start on their website and take in any publicly available information that they're posting. So a lot of brands, I would say a lot of brands these days have some sort of sustainability or responsibility page where they often talk about their material sourcing, sometimes their manufacturing, sometimes their emissions, their packaging, things like that. So we usually start there. And then some brands produce annual impact reports is like the most common term. Some brands call them sustainability reports or environmental social governance reports. Some of them cover lots of different topics, but for us, we focus on the sustainability, environmental impact information. And sometimes those reports can be like 50 or even 100 pages long.
I was going to say.
That's a lot of work. Yeah, we sort through those, specifically looking at the criteria that we're interested in, but we sort through those and try to figure out, okay, where is this brand doing its manufacturing? Where is it at with repairs? Does it have like a circularity program, resale or repurposing or recycling? Does it have any data on its greenhouse gas emissions and its reduction progress? Does it have reduction goals? So we're not just looking for like a yes, no, we're looking for specific information and also data behind things. And so when a brand says we use recycled materials, we want to know how many and which one and in which products. So there's a lot of like follow-ups, but so we start in those places. And then there's also some third-party websites that brands are partnering with, such as like Blue Sign. If a brand is a Blue Sign system partner, we can find that out on the Blue Sign website, or the Outdoor Industry Association. There's some brand reports on their website, so we can use that information. But so we start with those sources and just try to get a snapshot. And then pretty much all the time we end up emailing the brand as well. I mean, one, because we want, to give them sort of a chance to chime in, but also like we often just have questions. And it's really, really helpful to email with someone, or a lot of times we end up just getting on a Zoom call and chatting for 30 minutes or an hour. We answer questions. They often tell us stuff that's like new that weren't even part of our questions. So those conversations tend to, we just like gather lots of information. So we do include the brand, but we don't always have like a pre-existing relationship or anything like that. But we contact them, and sometimes brands don't write back, and so we just do our best, and we usually say that if they don't, like, we reached out for more information, but we never heard back. But I would say a lot of the times brands do write back, and there's varying sort of depth to the responses, but the direct brand like information is always really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes sense to give that back and forth and give the brand an option for that, because it does seem like so many brand, like it's almost to the point where if you're a brand and you don't have not even a team working on it, hopefully, but like you don't have any information about sustainability, it feels like at this point, and Better Trail is really proving this, like you're being left behind maybe, or you're like not doing the pieces that need to be done for your brand as I don't know, I just feel like there's that like responsibility maybe that's also a buzzword, but whatever word you want to say, like that brands have to be, very conscious of what they're making in the outdoor gear
Mhm.
space.
Yeah, I think in that it's become a bit of a marketing tool for a lot of brands. And I
Yeah.
think something that Better Trail is doing well is like sifting through the jargon of marketing to kind of to really get at what's true and what's not. Like I think a brand
Yeah.
can talk a big talk with like generalities, and then Katie and her team dig into it and they're like, "Oh, you say recycled materials, but you mean 5% of your materials
Oh, yes.
or
Uh-huh.
whatever." And so like greenwashing is still very much a thing and something that we're really aware of. And yeah, I think when Katie and her team like get into the annual impact reports, which have to show data and
Hmm.
really see what a brand says on their website versus what they're really doing, and we go off what they're really doing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
like a lot of brands have greenhouse gas reduction goals, and
Hmm.
we can we can look at other websites such as the Science Based Targets Initiative, which is a common program that brands use to verify their reduction goals that they align with climate science. And so we can kind of compare what is the brand saying in their impact report and on their website versus the SBTI website, and are those the same? Um, and then like ask the brand for clarification if we feel like it's different. And yeah, so there are a few resources outside of just the brand information that are helpful for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious too, like what it sounds like some brands don't respond, but what has the general reaction been from brand teams? Like, are people like, "Oh, this is so cool," or is it like, "Oh, wow," like, "Uh oh," I don't know. Like, is there, yeah, what
Yeah,
are the reactions there?
I would say for the most parts, it's generally pretty positive.
Yeah,
And yeah, brands are definitely willing to engage. I think it sometimes maybe just depends on how much time they have about whether
totally.
they're offering to meet with us or just responding to an email. But I would say for the most part, brands are willing to engage, and if they're not, we haven't gotten much like bad energy or anything like that. It's usually
Yeah,
just like we don't have capacity to respond to this right now or something like
yeah,
that. But I would say, yeah, overall, it's been a positive response.
yeah, that's cool. And it's also, I mean, it is the outdoor community in general. I feel like there's a good, most of the time, a good vibe amongst that community. So it's really good to hear that there's been positivity. But
Yeah. And we're
yeah, I
usually
think,
pretty upfront just with how we're
yeah,
using the information. And so brands can choose like what they share with us. So,
yeah, totally. I mean, that's the transparency that you all have and approach them with, I think is essential because again, like we were talking about, it's not necessarily like it's a moment in a positive way. It's a moment to have a brand showcase like all the great work they've been doing behind the scenes, maybe. And it's not necessarily, yeah, like the gotcha vibe of like, oh, this is, painting someone in a bad light. But I think what you're doing is amazing of presenting facts, like presenting here's the really rigorous system. You mentioned like all the Excel, like formulas and spreadsheets and stuff that you've developed to make sure that these like rankings and ratings and what goes into them, that you're communicating all of that. And I think that's super important. It's just presenting open information to customers as they
yeah.
come looking for it.
Yeah, and I think that is something like I think our readership cares about that transparency both from us
Yeah.
like, hey, we have great articles, like here's how we're doing our research, here's how we make our ratings, and also wanting to know that from brands. So part of the sustainability hub on the brand
Mm,
side is that we give every brand a transparency rating, and that's essentially based on like how transparent a brand is about its sustainability initiatives. And we have like some criteria that we use for that, but basically like how well does the brand publish their info on their website or in their impact report, or the data that we're talking about. um,
yeah.
and then also their communication with us is part of that. Just when we have questions like, are they open to responding and those sorts of things, or are they declining to comment? Because I do think,
Yeah.
you know like the way we see it is transparency is the key difference between brands that like genuinely integrate environmental responsibility into their business model, and maybe brands that are using it more as like marketing.
Totally. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, one thing I also really appreciate about Better Trail, and this is something that my partner Ryan and I talk about, and actually talked about at the kind of the outset of this project where the climate things are, was he was like, I care so much about environmental issues. I care about the climate. I care about these topics, and I have no idea where to start. Like, I don't know what the words are. I don't know. I feel like he's, I use this as an example a lot. I'm always like, is this cool if I share this? But like, you know, I'd like to just expose that. But no, I mean, it's such a good one example of, I think, a broader outdoor community, myself included, where I'm like, you know, there's imposter syndrome or what have you around even sometimes having these conversations or engaging in, and or even knowing what questions to ask. And so I think like one thing that I appreciate about what you all are doing is like, hey, what is a Higg index? Like, that's a really fancy term. What does it mean? Can you break it down? Like, it feels accessible, the information and education, to your point that you were talking about, of, you know, creating a better educated population of people maybe buying gear. But there's a the accessibility piece I really appreciate about Better Trail, because I think these kinds of topics are so, they're like made more academic, and they're sometimes, or there's like almost like a gatekeeping in some of these conversations around climate, which is so interesting, because I and that's again what I'm trying to do here, is just to like open up these conversations, be like, what are we talking about? What are the topics that we need to discuss, and give people more, not just education too, but also like confidence to just say like, hey, I actually don't know what PFAS is. That's another thing. We've been throwing around this term, and it's like these forever chemicals, which we can link to all the information in show notes too, but we don't have to like go into it now. But like a lot of these topics, I think, feel not accessible to a lot of folks in the outdoor industry and beyond. And so I think that's something that, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that about what you're doing, is not only presenting the facts and presenting these like rankings or ratings, or I don't know the language exactly that you're calling it, but like just the ability for folks to make their own informed decisions, but also to be like, hey, I'm going to click over here and learn more about these sustainability topics, because like maybe I don't know enough, or I don't feel confident enough. Again, that's me. I'm raising my hand. I'm always like, yeah, what is like, I need to like refresh. What is the Higg index? You know, you're like, yes, like let me go to the website and see, like I can go down this rabbit hole on my own of learning this in relation to outdoor gear. So yeah, I just think that's very cool that you've
and the answers
that.
are sometimes quite complicated, and I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we're not bashful about like expressing that. You know, like recycled materials are, it's complicated.
Totally.
Are they worth it? Are they beneficial? Are there downfalls? Yeah, absolutely. And so we're not trying to sell anybody on anything. We're just trying to create more informed consumers.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think the piece I was curious to ask more about, obviously, like, again, I came into Better Trail from the environmental geek out side of like, all these cool topics and pieces of education, and have learned a lot more about gear in the process. But like, you know, I feel like consumers or readers come in from different angles. Tell me more about the public land side of things, because you mentioned, I know there's kind of this outdoor gear piece, definitely has a strong sustainability focus. That's like what an amazing merging of those two topics on Better Trail. And then the public lands education piece was so interesting, and I think that was actually my first point of like connection to this project, where I was like, this is all connected. We're talking about topics around climate and environment sustainability. And to your point, I think Jenny was the one that said it in the beginning, but like the idea that, you know, if you're recreating, if you're using this outdoor gear, you're probably using public lands or near public lands, or like want to know more about these spaces and how conservation works or protection works and or doesn't. You know, we can talk through that too. But well, how did that come about in the Better Trail model?
Yeah, that is truly like a passion project of David's, one of the three co-founders. And David's dad was a professor of environmental law at CU Boulder, and David grew up with like Terry Tempest Williams like around, and like just this whole like a lot of importance on public lands. He grew up in Boulder, so like near this like big hub for recreation. And I think we all identify, yeah, exactly as I said, like if you are shopping on or if you're like researching gear to shop for gear, like you're almost certainly recreating on public lands. And yet like the information to educate yourself on these public lands, it's so challenging to find. Like we have some articles that I've so loved reading about, like, where does funding come from for public lands? like, tell me about like, what's the difference between BLM land and Forest Service land and national parks, and like, how are they funded, and how do we use them? Tell me about like multiple use on public land. Like, a large portion of public land is used for timber and for mining and cattle, and that's public too. And so I I think it's just, we wanted to also be this like wraparound resource. So like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so we identify you, if you're shopping for outdoor gear, now we got you. now,
Yeah.
now let us tell you a little bit about like,
Welcome.
yeah, sustainability and how outdoor gear is made. And now let us like, oh, we have your attention. Okay, like, here's some answers about public lands, or just like
Mm-hmm.
inform yourself a little bit. And so it's in its infancy, but there's a lot of really amazing articles on the website right now,
Mm-hmm.
written mostly by a guy named Nick Mott and his community. He like sourced some people to write for him. Nick lives in Livingston, Montana, and has built a life around like public lands journalism. And so we knew of Nick, and we hired him to build out this portion of our website. We're not really sure the future of the public lands content, but we know it's really important, and
Yeah.
it is not there to make us any sort of money. It is there to be to we want so badly to add something to this space, and to make a positive impact, like harnessing this group of people who are buying outdoor gear, and having resources to help them be better users of the land. So it's a great,
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I
Yeah.
stand behind the articles on the public land side of the website are so cool, and
Yeah.
definitely worth digging into there.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I really appreciate that you're dedicating resources to that. And I know Better Trail is starting out, and is young and can go many different directions. And
Mhm.
but I think it's really cool that public lands are part of the conversation right now, at
Yeah.
least. And as you said, Jenny, that's a really good way to put it. Like, harnessing this community of people who are so passionate. Like, again, that's connected to my theory of change too, of like, these people are like not only passionate about outdoor recreation, but usually it's like, I love like the trail out my door. Like, this trail is like the thing for me, or this river where I fish, or this, or paddle, or like the
Mhm.
specific spots. And I think that kind of passion is like next level, that like
Yeah.
specific location based interest and advocacy and passion for that. And so I think that was another piece where I was like, we need to like unlock, or like unlock that, or harness it, guide it a little bit towards possibly advocacy or taking action. And I think, again, a more informed community is only going to hopefully create better action, or like more positive action in that way,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, I have a couple more questions and then we'll wrap. But I'm curious. I feel like you both have probably been like gear testers for many years, is my guess. But I have only done like a little bit of this officially, and slash unofficially. I mean, I'm adjacent to free trail, so there's always a lot of like, hey, can you go run in this? Like, let's try this out, whatever. But what is like, yeah, what's the cool? I don't know, Jenny. I just saw you were like down in Argentina or maybe Patagonia region. Like, what's the coolest part of gear testing, and what's also some of like the harder parts of it? Like, just tell us about that.
Well, I can tell you the hard parts first.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's start there.
I mean, gear testing sounds really cool, but it actually means that you're using a lot of stuff that you would probably rather not use. Like,
Yeah.
we all build a kit for a reason, and we all like dial in that kit for a reason. And if I had it my way, I'd wear the same shoes every time I do a certain activity, and like, same layering system, same backpack. But so that's like the unsexy side of gear testing, is like, there's not all gear is good, not all gear is well suited to what you're doing. Gear has different personalities, and gratefully, like, we have a lot of young and hungry like outdoor folk who are just so psyched to, I think at this point I've been doing it for like 10 years, which has its advantages. When you've been wearing like 100 different pairs of hiking shoes over the last 10 years, you certainly have a lot of like points of reference for what makes a good hiking shoe, or what's stable, what's good traction, etc. But yeah, not to like get too negative Nancy about it, because it's like, it also is just, it's such a fun opportunity to get outside. And I think for the Better Trail team, we spend a lot of time on our computers. Like it is not all glorious. We hire out a lot of our gear testing at this point. But I'm always able personally to, when I go on a personal trip, to bring stuff along with me, try it out. I'm always trying out new things. My shoe rack is very full. And every day I go running, I wear a different pair of shoes, and I'm mixing it up a lot. And we as a team, it will look different. I mean, it's looked different over the years, but we generally do try to take trips together just to keep our boots on the ground, literally, in the world of it all. And we've all been to Patagonia many times together. It's a great like shift to new gear often comes out in like the February timeframe, new summer gear. And so Patagonia is a great place to go use it and have some weather and some tricky conditions and terrain. And
my one experience in the Patagonia region was exactly that. It was like, oh, we round a corner, hail. You round the other corner, sun. And then we're here and it's sleeting. You're like, what is happening? This is wild. Yeah. I mean, but it was like also like the best trip of my life because it's so beautiful there. That's awesome. I mean, I think too, I was curious, like, again, this is not a gotcha question at all, but like you've had so many successes with Better Trail. It seems like things, I don't know. I go on the website. It's just like page after page. Like there's so much content. Y'all are crushing it. What has been hard about it? Like what has been like, what is the hard, like everything, like what is, like, I feel like it's so easy to like, you know, just to kind of dig into like, the fail fast piece of things where it's like, I'm sure it's been so challenging. What do you want to share about that? Like what,
Katie, do you want to go first?
I can go first. I mean, I think it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, I guess I'd say. But on the sustainability side, things are changing fast. So, I mean, especially with things like PFAS or even, I mean, kind of all the product level stuff. I mean, and brand level, but it's just, it's a rapidly changing environment and products are being updated all the time. So, you know, we do this research and one season we publish and then it feels like a few months later, oh, half these products have changed and so we need to update them. So there is a lot of like staying up to date with the updates and making sure that those happen. But I think another thing, I guess it was a challenge just to redo a bunch of content, but also I think really necessary and really cool is that when we started our sustainability rating system, it was a little bit more like, yes, no, does this, is this recycled or not? And really a few months into the research, we were like, oh, this is way not this is not a yes no system,
not a checkbox.
It's not a checkbox. It literally was checkboxes at the start. And so now our criteria is much more like scaled and nuanced. And so if we take the recycled materials example for a down jacket, you could have a jacket that's made of recycled shell fabric and lining fabric, and sometimes a down is even recycled. And so that obviously meets the recycled materials category much more thoroughly than a jacket that has none or just a shell fabric that's recycled. And so now, and that's kind of the case for most of our criteria. And so now we scale our ratings much more to how well does this product meet our criteria. And that has made the ratings much more nuanced and I also think accurate. But as a result, we also had to go back and redo all of our ratings that we had already done. So that has definitely taken some time, but I also like stand by them. And I think moving forward, it's a really awesome system and like guidelines that we have now for ourselves. But that was definitely like, oh, okay, we got to spend some time with this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Man, and like while Katie is just like totally slaving away in the nuance of like fabrics, like I feel like some of the challenges for the founding team has just been like there is just so much to do when you're starting a new business, from
Yeah,
like coming up with a name, which was so hard for us because we're three
for
extremely different
sure.
people who are trying to found this website together. I like really wanted it to be called Fun Hog, which is so good that it's not called Fun Hog, but that gives you an idea of how
Yeah.
divergent personalities are. We had Trail Standard, we had Fun Hog, we had like, anyways, naming was
Wow.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, branding, like we had to design the whole website. The development of the
Which
website
looks
has
great.
been
Yeah.
extremely complicated, and we've been working
Hmm.
with a great firm, great group of people for that, but it continues to be complex as we develop the sustainability hub. Um, yeah, I think hiring, like finding those 40 people to that are like skilled and experienced, and there's just it's just every day I just feel assaulted with like five problems that are coming from completely different angles, like social
Yeah.
media and hiring and like this code thing on the website. And yeah, it's like starting a business is wild, and I'm
Yeah.
so glad that you can look at Better Trail and see something that looks polished.
Truly. Yeah.
Our lives are not polished right now.
That's, yeah, I mean, but also, and like both of you are extremely accomplished mountain athletes, like to hear the challenges of like starting a business, which involves, yeah, like a lot of computer time or a lot of time on the
Mhm.
phone and a lot of like relationship management and hiring and social media and all these pieces. It's like y'all have done hard things, and I'm also like, yeah,
Mhm.
this seems really hard. Like it does. It
Interesting.
seems really really hard.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing some of those, because I just think it's interesting. Like again, I'm like, how much do I talk about free trail? But like, I feel like with free trail, I mean, well, actually, I can talk about two climate things, like where the climate things are. Yeah, I'm like literally, it's just me doing this like whole media series and like a Substack and all this, like all these
Yeah.
pieces, and like now we're doing events and stuff, which like wasn't part of the plan, but like it's just it's so many things, and it's not even like a full business. It just feels like you're like, oh yeah, no one's gonna like post, like no one's gonna like, I gotta figure that out, like that's me. Yeah, but yeah, I mean like I'll figure out if I keep this in or not. But like with free trail, those guys are like crushing it in the trail space and like trail media, like Dylan, Ryan, Harmony. But they're also like, there's been so many, like it's such a bumpy ride. Like they've like bootstrapped this whole thing, but it's been like a journey and a process. And it's not always smooth. And to your point, Jenny, it's like not always like all the co-founders on the same page. It's
Right.
like even I mean, I wasn't around for the branding, like for the naming conversation of free trail, but I hear that was also like its own, like I hear the
Plan.
lore of like that was
Yeah.
also its
I
own
bet.
challenge. So it's just,
I'm a
I
big
mean,
free
it's,
trail consumer, and I
I
like from
mean,
the outside, they're doing everything right. So,
see,
right?
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
good, yeah. So there you go. Good example of not to say again, this is where I'm like, guys, free trail is awesome, but it's interesting kind of seeing it from behind the scenes and being like, they work, they like haul ass to get these things out in the world, and like all the
Mm.
creative stuff Ryan does, it's like I get a first hand, front row seat for that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
Yeah.
I really do. That's kind of why I was like, okay, like I have a question. Like, what is challenging about what
Oh
you're
my gosh.
doing? Because it feels like everything, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
When
all.
David pitched this project to me, I was working 30 hours a week at Switchback, and it was totally the
Hmm.
golden handcuffs. Like I had unlimited time off. Like I had all the space to pursue
Yeah.
my adventures. And
Yeah.
when he pitched the project, I was like, I will do it, but I have to stick to 30 hours a week. Like I just can't do more. I know for my own well-being, like, and I need to take a certain amount of time off a year, like
Yeah.
in order to stay
Yeah.
well. And like, I'm in this like prime of my life. I'm not getting younger. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
to be like tied to a job right now in that way. And I have been so tied to a job
Like
in the
waiting for the
last
drop.
year.
Like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that 30-hour week thing like kind of
Oh.
went out the window. And it's interesting when it becomes your own, and like you said, like no one's gonna do X, Y, or Z. It's like I'm gonna do it. It's like, yeah, and I care that it gets done. And so here I am at
Yeah.
my computer still.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I know. Well, yeah, and to that point, thank you. Thank you both for taking more computer time to be on the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
But no, I hear you. I mean, and yeah, what a lovely like ideal 30 hours a week. I need to take some time
Right.
off, all
Startup.
this stuff. And you're
Yeah,
like,
right.
well, that's funny at this point.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, so appreciate, I think that's like, it's really cool, at least for me. And I think for a lot of listeners to be like, oh, there's so much that goes in behind this. And like all the work that y'all are doing on the team is just, it's evident by the, you know, as you said, it looks polished. It does. It looks really polished, and there's a lot of content. That's where you can tell, like, that's where I'm extremely impressed, is because, again, content generation, like quality content generation, that's like from, you know, various corners of the world and different pieces of gear that also educate folks on public lands and sustainability. That's hard to create. Like, it's, you know, it's definitely impressive stuff, for what it's worth.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
all the it is very polished. So the last question I wanted to ask, this will be interesting from like, I'm always curious what people will come with on this question, but I ask folks, like, what is your favorite climate solution or environmental solution, sustainability solution that's not your own? So like in this case, you know, maybe it's not the like educational resource around gear. I don't know how you want to take that, but you know, I have the Dakota Jones of the world on, and I'm like, Dakota, what's your favorite climate solution that's not footprints, right? That's not something that you've started. So to you both, and you know, either one can take it first, but yeah, what's your favorite climate solution out there in the world that you're excited about that's not Better Trail?
Yeah, I can start. When I was thinking about this question, for me, I think my favorite climate solution is simply just getting involved. I think it's easy as just one person to think like, well, what can I do? Or I can't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, like, you can. And I think, especially when it comes to legislation and being knowledgeable and getting involved at the local, state, or even national level, like the legislation is what drives climate change solutions or environmental protections. And I mean, even in our work at Better Trail, we've seen that with PFAS. I mean, outdoor brands have known about PFAS for a while. And, you know, some brands on their own accord have been like, all right, we're going to get rid of this. But there's now a huge push for brands to change. And a lot of brands, I mean, all the brands basically are, but it's because of state legislation saying like, all right, textiles can no longer contain PFAS.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they have to do it. And so like as an individual, I think there's this big piece of just getting involved, and whether that's just showing up to public meetings or submitting comments or supporting specific events or simply just staying informed, like those actions can influence real change. And legislators can be and are influenced by the public opinion, especially like at the local and state level. So like staying informed and advocating for policy that you do or don't support, or getting together with friends and brainstorming how to influence even your local government. And earlier I talked about the Lander Climate Action Network, and I've just been sort of floored with how successful that has been and some of the accomplishments there. And I've been thinking like, wow, if every town or city was doing this, like that does make a difference on a national level. And so, yeah, for me, I think it's just like getting involved, whatever way you can, whatever way you know how to do, it really does help.
Yeah, I think that's also like, we need to hear that right now. Like that is a great message to share far and wide. I needed to be reminded, like, I do have those days, admittedly, where I'm like, wow, like, okay, you know, reading the headlines or whatever. I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do or whatever. And it's like those small actions really do make a difference. That's cool. Yeah.
This is going to sound so elementary, but the idea of reduction, like reducing impact, it's like long been like my life mantra and goal is to just be more minimalist and have less of a footprint. And I think recently I've begun to realize that you can make a game out of it. So you can reduce consumption over here so that you have more money to give to like a boots on the ground organization, or you can reduce travel over here so that you have more time to give to activism. And to kind of like, yeah, make
Yeah.
a game or a trade. I don't know. I'm sure there's some like behavioral economics term for this, but like a replacement behavior to like, we all say like, oh, I don't have enough time, or like, I don't have enough money, but like, okay, so do you really need that pair of shoes? Like maybe don't buy that pair of shoes and give
Yeah.
that $120 over here. Or
Mm.
do you really need to go over there when you live in a beautiful place? Like give that up, stay home and have more time for this. So yeah, this idea of making a game out of reducing our impact feels fun.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I love that. I love the swapping out for, because I feel like a lot of the kind of dialogue around this has that like, let's reduce, and then it sort of stops there, instead of it being like, but what else can we give? Like, what are you then giving back to the community? Or, staying in Washington versus traveling halfway across the world to other mountains that are also beautiful, but like right here at home. There's so many, exactly. So I
one of
love
the
that
reasons this is
framing.
on my mind, a specific example of this is, I think our mutual friend Alex is, he has a small running trail running brand that makes products that are really cheap. Yeah. And he gets the question a lot, like, oh, are those sustainably made? Like, are they made in China? And he's like, yeah, they are. They're made in China. But if you spend $29 on your pair of shorts instead of $100, you can take that leftover $70 and you can give it towards a good a climate solution. And it's just one way of looking at it. I'm not saying it's right, but it's gotten my gears turning about the different ways that we can kind of like play with behavior and like motivate people to change their behaviors in ways that work for everyone. That, we always need incentive as humans. So feels like a fun solution.
It is. That's really cool. And I think to take that specific example even further, I've been thinking a lot about Alex's company, actually, where like the accessibility of these kinds of products that are made more cheaply and people can buy a shirt for $20. Like there's such a barrier to entry, I think, in the outdoors. And a lot of these different sports. And I think like there's a thing around trail running that everyone's like, oh, it's so cheap. You just buy a pair of shoes, but it's not. Like it's, for many reasons. But I think then like taking that a step further, there's research that I've at some point linked to or written about on Substack, et cetera, but I can link to it again, around like folks who have a connection to outdoor spaces. Like there is actually research on like the amount that they're involved in conservation, in climate solutions, in advocacy, right? And to your point, Katie, like just getting involved. But if someone kind of doesn't have that like access point, connection, there it gets lost a little bit, or there's not that same drive. And so I've been thinking about accessibility, and talking about it on my other podcast for years, but like there's so much here where the swapping out, for one thing, you're totally right. Like there's that like, well, you're not just reducing, like, yes, you're reducing and like you're changing your behavior. It doesn't have to be like a scarcity mindset, I guess, which is, I love that reframe that you had. Thank you both so much for this. This is joyful. This is awesome.
The same way.
Thank you for chatting and telling us all more about Better Trail. It's really, really cool what you're doing, and keep doing it. Like, I think that's something that needs to be said. I need to hear that sometimes. Like, folks have been like, keep doing what you're doing, right? It's like, but keep doing this. I know it's hard and I know it's a lot, but if you can, right? Like, but keep going, because we're all cheering you on, and we need this in the outdoor industry. We need this in the climate advocacy space, environmental sustainability space. Like, this is so needed. So thank you both. Thank you all and your whole team for the work that you're doing on Better Trail, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.